Hi, welcome to the Catholic Corner. I'm Monsignor Walter Nolan. Immaculée Ilibagiza has been a guest of ours on the show a little while back, and she was there discussing her beautiful book, Left to Tell, Discovering God Amidst the Rwanda Holocaust. If you haven't read it or heard about it, you ought to do so. See, it was about the 1994 genocide in Rwanda, how she not only survived, but how she was able to forgive her persecutors. Beautiful, beautiful story. But now she has another story to tell. Began more than 10 years, even before the genocide. It's in 1981, when the Blessed Mother appeared to 3 teenage girls attending a Catholic boarding school in Kibeho. Another beautiful, beautiful story. See, it's this story which Immaculée wants all of us to know about. My guest today accompanied Immaculée to Rwanda last year for the 30th anniversary of these visions. Patrick Dolan is formerly an associate director with the Diocese of Trenton Department of Radio and Television, and he continues his work as a freelance part of the department. His longtime friend and associate Matthew Gorman is with us, and they both traveled to Rwanda to record the commemorations and celebrations of these visions. Patrick brought with him a video report he edited for the Journal. Patrick and Matthew will also share their own personal testimony of their spiritual experience. Patrick and Matthew, welcome to the Catholic Corner.
Thank you, Monsignor.
Thank you.
Boy, it had to be a great experience. Boy, oh boy, I wish I was with you.
Yeah, it was.
Next time you go, call me, I'll
Sure.
carry your bags. Tell me a little bit about how this all came about to travel with Immaculée and get something like this documented.
Well, I've been working with Immaculée for a couple of years now, and meeting her through my work with the Diocese of Trenton. So it's really been a blessing. A lot of the work that I've done with her has been video editing. Whenever she'd lead a pilgrimage to Rwanda, and specifically Kibeho, she'd always send me the footage to maybe do some basic editing and assembling a larger documentary project, something that we've been kind of working on over the last couple of years. So this opportunity came about when she emailed me in late October, said she was thinking about making the trip for the 30th anniversary celebration in Kibeho, and wanted to know if I wanted to go and document it.
And you thought about it for all of about 3 minutes?
Oh yes, yeah. Well, once I got the approval of my wife, I said, that was fine. So. Well,
anybody who knows Immaculée also knows she's a hard person to resist. I mean, she's a beautiful, beautiful woman who's a saint.
Yeah.
Matthew, how did you get involved in this beautiful project?
Well, it was probably not too much after Patrick had received a notice or request from Immaculée to accompany her and to assist her, and I had called Patrick about a completely different matter on the telephone. And I remember him saying, well, while I have you on the phone, I wanted to ask if you'd be available to join me on a trip in late November, going to Rwanda. And I think I took much less than 3 minutes to make my decision. I was only tangentially familiar with the story of Left to Tell. My mother had read the book, and a good friend of mine had read the book, and it was on my to-read list, but it was immediately bumped up to the top of the list. So like I said, I said yes very quickly, and I absorbed as much as I could about the story, both through the Left to Tell and also the book, Our Lady of Kibeho.
So, Patrick and Matthew, we're going to be watching a little bit of some of the clip. Can you just give me a little overview of what we're going to be seeing?
Okay, this was a video news piece done for the Monitor. Lois Rogers did an article about our journey that was in late November, and it appeared in the January 19th issue of the Monitor. So this is kind of a multimedia presentation, just kind of giving some background as to what exactly happened at Kibeho with the apparitions, the teenagers involved, and what was revealed through the genocide, and then and what the site means today for Rwanda.
That's awesome. Let's watch the clip, and then we'll have a chance to hear some of your other thoughts about it.
It was late November 1981. The place was Kibeho, a tiny village nestled in the lush hills of southwestern Rwanda. In the cafeteria of one of the poorest boarding schools in the country, Alphonsine Mumaraki, a 17-year-old student, had just finished lunch with her classmates and was busy cleaning off tables as part of her scheduled chores. It was then that she recalls hearing a voice, calling for her from a nearby hallway. Little did she know that in the moment that ensued, she would come face to face with a most extraordinary visitor. It would be the first of several visions Alphonsine would receive of a heavenly woman of incomparable beauty who called herself the Mother of the Word. For Alphonsine, it was immediately clear she was in the presence of no other than Mary, the mother of our Savior, Jesus. To stand on the same hilltop 3 decades later was quite humbling, especially for someone who had just become familiar with the story a couple of years ago. I found myself here as part of a pilgrimage with left-to-tell author Immaculée Ilibagiza, whose own faith experience has led her to bring hundreds of pilgrims from the US and Europe to this holy site. As part of the filming for an upcoming documentary on the apparitions, I was here to capture the 30th anniversary feast of Our Lady of Kibeho, a celebration marking the November 28th date of Mary's first appearance at Kibeho School. While preparing for this pilgrimage, I refamiliarized myself with the incredible story of how the Blessed Mother appeared to several young people in and around Kibeho during the early 1980s. As recently as 2001, the Vatican, in a very rare move, approved 3 of the visionaries, Alphonsine, Natalie Mukamazimpaka, and Marie-Claire Mukangengo, as having authentic experiences of the Holy Mother. While this approval has certainly elevated Kibeho's status among apparition sites around the world to those of Lourdes and Fatima, it is the message Mary brought of conversion, devotion, and prayer that has made the greatest impact on the people of Rwanda. A people who saw evil unleashed across their country in the form of the 1994 genocide, claiming nearly 1 million lives over the course of 3 months. It was Mary, Our Lady of Kibeho, who came to warn of the impending war if hearts did not turn back to God. The premonition she revealed to the visionaries 10 years earlier contained unmistakable images of the horrors and brutality of the genocide. Many truly believe that if the citizens of Rwanda had been more attentive to the stern warnings of the Blessed Mother, the war could have been avoided entirely. We arrived just before sunset at the Shrine of Our Lady of Sorrows during the Vigil Mass. An outdoor sanctuary was used in order to accommodate the tens of thousands of pilgrims who had made the journey, most of them by foot. The night brought with it fantastic blasts of lightning that would illuminate the whole sky, while the congregation was bathed in the beautiful glow of the candlelight procession from the outdoor pavilion to the interior of the church. In the church itself, 1,500 pilgrims praised Mary through song, dance, and prayer, their voices in unison, their spirits lifted high. They would sleep inside the church that night, on the concrete floor and on wooden pews. They were the fortunate ones, however, since most of the other pilgrims had no choice but to sleep outside in the cold and rain. One such group of pilgrims was a youth choir from Rwanda's western province, who had traveled over 120 miles over 4 days to lend their voices to the celebration.
So they're like, look, Jesus has suffered in his life, and Mary has suffered in her life. So they are here, they worked to mortify themselves and to atone their sins and the sins of the world, because our Lady have told them that is good.
On the feast day of November 28th, the Most Reverend Augustine Misago, Bishop of Gikanguru, concelebrated Mass with over 60 priests from across the diocese and other parts of Rwanda. Speaking in French and Kinyarwanda, the native Rwandan language, the bishop spoke about the importance of Mary's message for today's world.
Mary did not come to us so that we may fear. She came to remind us the good news of his Son, the good news of salvation and forgiveness.
The 3.5-hour Mass included a touching gift offertory, where congregants who could not afford to give money instead offered up whatever items they could spare. This included grain, wine, fabrics, and homemade items. For the thousands of participants, some coming from places all over the world, This was truly a celebration of God's divine grace and the continued mercy and love that Mary gives her children on behalf of her Son. For me, witnessing the completely selfless, lively faith of a people touched by Christ evoked the idea of what John Paul II deemed as the new springtime for the Church. In this time of healing for Rwanda, a spectacular moment for the life of the Catholic Church certainly springs forth from the village of Kibeho, where the message of Christ's eternal salvation is being met with transformative acts of justice, reconciliation, and hope for a bright and peaceful future.
Patrick and Matthew. You know, just even watching the clip, it almost draws you right in like you were there. Must have been a tremendous experience.
Oh, yes.
I got goosebumps watching that again.
I can imagine. And knowing Immaculée, you know, I was very blessed to have been in her company a couple of times. Just knowing her and her great faith and her faith to the Blessed Mother. Not only gave her life, but now gives life to so many.
Oh, yes, yeah.
You know, it makes you think. As they said, you know, if they paid attention, maybe the war could have been averted. You know, when it comes out just in a sentence like that, but then when all of a sudden you say 1 million lives in, 3 months? You know, just to pay attention to God's word, a little faith, a little hope. Wow. So tell me a little bit, how you experienced the country.
Well, first off, it was a lot different, I think, than what I expected it to be. Absolutely beautiful and extremely clean, and I think that has a lot to do with the current president of the country. I mean, he's very into making the country very presentable, not if you have trash or anything, putting it in the right areas, so just kind of making the country attractive to any kind of foreign investment and this and that. So that's what I immediately was, I guess, was different for me from what I expected it to be. And also, I think the amount of people and how developed everything was. I kind of thought we were going into the middle of nowhere, but it's actually a very, I don't know, very populated country and has a lot of farmland. And
yeah, for me, I think I was very reflective of some of the news. The propensity sometimes to glorify tragedy. So when we arrived, there was part of me that was concerned that will I have a safety concern. And I can tell you that I've never visited a place so far that was as non-hostile, either in any sense of physical danger or just the idea of will I be harmed. I mean, people were very pleasant. And nothing like I might have expected. Again, just going on some of the what you might take away from, like I said, the news and the media sometimes glorifying tragedy.
I don't know how many people told me, you know, be safe while you go over there. You know, like, and you have to understand. Well, the war was over 17 years ago. You know, it really has come a long way, and you can see that it's completely. They're building all sorts of new. Buildings and structures there. It's quite incredible to see, you know, and we don't get a lot of news from that area of the world anymore, but you know, it's certainly a lot is happening in that small country.
You know, when you're both talking, I'm thinking to myself that I'm probably like twice your age, but my experience is that there are so many beautiful people around the world, and with that gentleness and that love and that kindness and wanting to, and somehow or other something can happen where that tremendous love can turn into a hate, and yet when they realize it, you know, the depth of love comes back, and we can, you know, we can live as brothers and sisters. That's what I've seen, and that's what I'm hearing you say now, and I think it even helps when the Blessed Mother or God, our faith and all faiths somehow realize that there is a God of peace. You know, and wants us to live as brothers and sisters, and that's the beautiful thing. So now tell me, while you were there at Kibeho, it was an anniversary celebration. What were some of the highlights of that celebration? And speak to me a little bit more about it.
Well, we were in Kibeho for 3 full days. There was the vigil mass the day before. The anniversary was on November 28th.
And this is the anniversary, the 30th.
Correct.
This is of the first apparition.
Apparition, which I guess occurred on November 28th of 1981.
That's right.
So the mass was held on Monday, November 28th, 2011, and there was a vigil service the night before, which we saw in the video. And as it got dark at night, there was no light pollution, and because of the reliability of the power grids as they were, lights would go out. And we had a few of the boys in the town, and some of the children would help carry our equipment. And all of a sudden the lights go out, and you can't see your hand in front of your face, and you have all your equipment is just somewhere around you, and people are carrying it. I would feel hands coming out to me, grabbing my hand as to say, "Don't worry, I'm not. You won't lose me," which I thought was more than impressive. I thought.
Maybe they were saying, "We won't lose you."
Yeah.
Well, either way, I mean, just knowing that we're safe, it's
Yeah,
okay.
Because you're in a crowd of a lot,
Yeah.
probably a couple thousand people, and when the electricity does go off and you can't see anybody around you, it does. Your first thing is to kind of panic a little bit, but then you realize, it's nothing to really worry
Absolutely, yeah. And so that was my big takeaway from the service. And as we saw in the video as well, the following day at the service on Monday was
the actual mass.
Yeah, the offertory procession. People who have beyond nothing by our standards in the West are bringing whatever they can and to offer it up to those that they realize might be even less fortunate than they themselves are.
A little while back, the diocese twinned with a diocese in Uganda. And I remember at the time it was almost the thought was, well, gee, we can bring a lot of things. What can they kind of twin back with us? What can they covenant with us? Mm-hmm. And you hit the nail right on the head, Patrick and Matthew. They have so much to offer us, so much to teach us even, or renew our teaching about that kind of a gift to each other and a gift to God and to live that gift. Mm-hmm. That's just tremendous. Can you tell me a little bit more about the visions? You mentioned that was an anniversary of the first vision. Tell me a little bit more about the others.
Okay, well, so far the Vatican has approved 3 of the visionaries. Those were the ones covered in the video. There are others. I think there was as many as almost 30 of them, I think. But the first 3 were the ones that were primarily investigated. And I think it's also impressive because the way the Vatican approved it, it was in such a quick way. Usually these things take centuries sometimes to get the approval, of making a site suddenly an authentic apparition site. So it's quite impressive that after 30 years or 20 years, it was approved in 2001 under John Paul II. That it was, that time frame. It seems pretty impressive that happened so quickly. When others takes decades, even centuries.
What we're seeing here is an emergence, in a sense, maybe at a little faster pace of like a Lourdes, a Fatima.
I think so. Just because I think the visions were so, they predicted the genocide in such detail that it was unmistakable, really. And that's why, the bishop even who furthered the investigations along couldn't help but say, this is an authentic apparition. These were certainly authentic messages from Mary, at least from the first 3 visionaries.
I'm going to change the scope just a teeny bit, but I think it's the same thing. I know you travel with Immaculée, who we all feel is a saint, a living saint on this earth. And I understand you went to her home village, where her parents and brothers were killed. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience? Because I tend to feel these experiences are really intertwined.
I think you're right.
Yeah. For me, having very recently read the book and hearing the stories and seeing the photographs in the book of her house and the property around her house, it was surreal to actually be there. And as we were walking along a path from her house, we had met a gentleman who was, I guess, one of those who had done prison time for his role. in the genocides. And Immaculée was inviting him to share his story of what he was now experiencing, knowing that what he had done. And you realize that the suffering is not just those that lost people and those that lost their lives, but the suffering that is felt by the people who committed these atrocities is beyond imaginable as well.
This man had killed about 15 people in her village. He killed his neighbors, people that he had grown up with. So she was translating for the camera, but what he would say was that, you know, he realized that he had killed all the people around him, that he was now lonely because he had done all these things. He had nobody left, you know, around him to help out with things or whatever. So that was certainly an experience. The other experience was there's a woman living at her house that had lost both her parents in the genocide. And she had certainly suffered trauma herself and continues to seek help for, I guess, dealing with it. But once he was explaining, you could see that how she was becoming upset. And Immaculée, right then and there, and we were only there at her house maybe for about an hour and a half.
This was very impromptu, what we witnessed.
Right. But you could noticeably see she was upset with what the man was saying. And she was kind of saying that you're lying about your feelings or what was happened. So Immaculée kind of facilitated this healing thing where she had him place his hands on her, and
so she was really promoting a sense of forgiveness. I mean, she was really trying to bring the person who suffered the hurt and the person who committed the hurt and bring them together and try to reunite them. And the vision I had was doing the peace process with Jimmy Carter and Anwar Sadat, that big handshake. And that vision came to me when I saw these two individuals actually clasp hands. Yeah. And you could tell that it wasn't easy for either of them, but Immaculée's commitment to promoting a sense of forgiveness was astonishing.
Yeah, and these are people who probably would not have really interacted much at all in the village. I mean, you have to think, we were only there for an hour and a half, and Immaculée was able to facilitate that just merely by being there.
And this was not scripted at all.
Right, right.
You know, when you said that, Matthew and Patrick, I myself like to pray my hands. I tell people to pray their hands because our hands can cause the pain. Our hands can promote the love. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's our hands that almost do everything, you know. I understand you also went to that spot, you know, that we've spoke about on other shows with Immaculée, that she spent, she hid in that bathroom, I think it was the pastor's bathroom for all of that time, and you went to that location. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just can't imagine what you could have felt. Tell me a little bit about that spiritual experience of being in a place where grace was happening.
Yeah, that was extremely moving. I think once you're sitting inside of it and you actually look at the space, I mean, it's only, I think, 4 feet by 3 feet, something like that.
Well, bathroom, right? A little bathroom.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It's a shower stall and a toilet. There wasn't even a sink.
Yeah, and 8 people were in there for 3 months. And so you just, sometimes when you think of, and reading through Left to Tell, wondering how you could even survive an hour in that space, you know, is baffling. You know, I think one of the things I asked her during the trip was like, at any point, did you just want to run out there and just say, you know, just kind of throw your hands up and give in, you know, to what it is, just to kind of end the
because people do that.
The anxiety.
I mean, wartime, people do that.
But for 8 people not to do that, and she says that she was the only one in there that was praying the rosary nonstop, and she said that with everything, with all the sounds that were outside of people being murdered, people coming into the house, storming through the house, looking for her and anybody else in there. She said that holding that rosary was like holding onto this table and giving her that, you know, stable thing to hold on to. And she says that through that action helped the other people in that bathroom keep themselves composed. You know, they were looking to her for that guidance, you know. And because I thought to myself, what a miracle that was, that nobody just
we get mad if we don't have our own bathroom.
Left. Yes, yeah.
Exactly.
Gosh, what Our Lady of Kibeho, what impressed you most about that and what stays with you even now as you come back here?
We had a great opportunity to spend about an hour and a half with Natalie, one of the visionaries who lives on the school grounds. And in some of the Q&A that we were able to engage in with her, she gave an answer to that I thought was very profound. And the question was having to do with the role of the rich world. And what she had said was, it's not so much that there's anything wrong with being a member of the rich world or being a rich world. It's just recognizing the responsibility you have that comes with that opportunity and to be aware of the whole world, not just your own world.
So true. Tell me, I've often wondered this. Now you've experienced being not only in the presence of I call a saint, Immaculate, but a visionary. Tell me what that's. I mean, I would expect
that was quite extraordinary.
Somebody who's seen the Blessed Mother wouldn't even be able to put their feet on the ground.
Yes.
No?
Yeah.
I don't think it really hit me until afterwards. I hate to say that, but I mean, realizing that she is probably one of only 2 or 3 people in the world that have been approved. That's quite amazing. You know what I mean? Her and Alphonsine. Alphonsine is actually a nun in the Ivory Coast. Obviously, I think being with one of 2 only Vatican-approved visionaries was quite extraordinary. But everything that she talked about was very consistent with our Catholic beliefs. There was nothing that really made you scratch your head about or said, oh, I don't think that's right. No, everything was very consistent with what we believe. Yes.
What message rings out the loudest?
To me, I think it's that evil is real and that we need to acknowledge it. Sometimes we don't want to acknowledge it, and our Western society doesn't like to talk about evil or the devil or anything like that, but in many of these atrocities, and not only in the Rwanda genocide, but so many other genocides in our history, the Holocaust in Cambodia, in Nanking.
Have you grown closer to the Blessed Mother?
Of course.
Of course.
Of course.
Matthew and Patrick, God bless you. What an experience. Please look up these beautiful, beautiful, I call them thin places, where heaven and earth kind of gonna meet. It'd be wonderful if you could read the life of Immaculée and also this beautiful experience that's growing and will grow throughout the world, the Kibeho beautiful vision of the Blessed Mother. Pray, keep us in your thoughts and love, because we do with you. God bless you. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.